Alright battlers, it is time to face the wrath of Lucario. I'm going to show you how to use Lucario in the Sinister Cup meta. We're going to open this match against Helix. This is perfect for us. Expecting the switch, we open up our tray as well. I'm going to bring in Claydol here. Now Claydol is weak to the ice punches that Poliwrath will throw. It doesn't fare super well against Bubble Poliwrath. We're going to leave it in here for now. I do use an Earth Power here to try to draw the shield, and we get it. Bubble Poliwrath is going to use an Ice Punch here to finish off our Claydol, and that's perfectly okay. In this situation, you probably think the outlook is not good. I'm going to show you how we came back from it. I bring in my Lola Marowak here. We do decide to shield that move, expecting another Ice Punch, but it was just a Power-Up Punch. I probably could have saved that shield, so keep that in mind going forward. I do use a Bone Club against the Poliwrath, and then I switch in Lucario to face off here against Helix. In comes the Drifblim. We're going to waste no time going straight for the Shadow Ball pressure. Drifblim does decide to shield that Shadow Ball. It's actually going to get a charge move off against us, but we still have that shield in our pocket. So we are going to defend the Ominous Wind, get a few more counters to get more energy, and then fire off another Shadow Ball. We one-shot one of the most powerful ghosts in the game in Drifblim. In comes Steelix, and we're going to fire up the power-up punch here. Lucario also excels in beating down these walls. Now this is before the move update, so power-up punch is doing more damage than it will going forward, but still the principle is the same. I bring in a Lola Marowak and then fire off a Bone Club to finish off the Steelix and win the game. Wasting no time, here is round 2. We open with Lucario against Poliwrath. This is a more interesting matchup than before because it is a mud-shot Poliwrath. All you really need to watch out for are the power-up punches, and even less so after the nerf. This match just got a whole lot closer after the update. I'm going to shield this first power-up punch because in the old meta it would hurt pretty badly. I actually go for the switch, but we don't quite make it, so I actually have to double shield my Lucario. In comes the Alola Marowak. We go for a power-up punch here, hoping to draw the shield. We don't quite get it. However, we have a lot of energy banked. We get to the Shadow Ball here, and we erase that Alola Marowak. In comes Bastiodon, and Lucario is going to sweep this entire team of 3 by itself. Going right into round 3, I decide to open with Girafarig. My opponent opens with a Bubble Poliwrath. So the Confusions will do good damage against Poliwrath, and he probably needs to get out of there soon. He is going to fire off a charge move, which is Power Up Punch. I do have to remember that this Poliwrath is boosted. A couple more Confusions though, and we bring it down. In comes Steelix, and I fire off the Mirror Coat. Steelix is Girafarig's worst nightmare. It doesn't really have a good counter. I do switch in Lucario, and then in comes Medicham. We're going to go for this Power Up Punch here to try to draw the shield. And we get it. So scared of the Shadow Ball, he does shield. I'm going to fire off a Shadow Ball here against the Medicham, and we draw both of those shields against Medicham. That is the kind of pressure that Lucario can put on an opposing team. When you have Lucario with a couple of counters, 2 or 3 counters worth of energy, it is immense. I bring in Claydol here against the Medicham. I've got 2 shields though, so I'm in a decent position. I'm not sure how this will play out. In comes Steelix. I go for the Earth Power, but I'm a little bit late on pulling the trigger. It does fire off the Crunch, so I have to shield that. Here comes an Earth Power against Steelix to bring it down. In comes the Medicham. Medicham does fire off a Power Punch against us. Should have been an Ice Punch. I think that might have KO'd us. We go for the Earth Power here, and that's enough to bring down Medicham. Kicking off this match, we go Drifblim Mirror Match. I'm going to fire off a few hexes here and then decide to bail out. I'm going to time it so that my Steelix absorbs this charge attack, expecting the Ominous Wind, and it is. His Drifblim does not get the boost, luckily. In comes Shiny Steelix. I'm going to go here straight up for the Earthquake to try to put some pressure on my opponent. He does decide to shield, which is very smart. His Steelix is going to fire off a charge move against us. I have a Drifblim with energy and a Lucario in the back, so I'm comfortable losing this Steelix. I decide not to shield. I fire off the Crunch here to do a little bit of chip damage, and we're going to let our Steelix go down. I make the fast swap actually into Lucario. I save that Steelix as a sacrificial swap for later. I do decide to defend this crunch, but we already have energy built up, and you know what that means. In comes Dusclops, one of the tankiest ghost Pokemon. It shields the first Shadow Ball, and we're trying to get to a second one. We are going to shield this attack here from the Dusclops. It is Fire Punch that would have wrecked us. We're going to fire off a second Shadow Ball here, and we are going to one-shot this Dusclops. In comes Drifblim, and we're going to try to make the swap into Steelix, but my timing wasn't quite right. You saw what I was trying to do there. I was trying to swap into Steelix and then bring Lucario back out and Shadow Ball down that Drifblim. That's okay though, because we have our own Drifblim with energy in the back. We are going to Shadow Ball down that Drifblim, and then in comes the weakened Steelix from earlier. This Steelix is going to try to make the sack swap with our Steelix, but this Steelix is going to fire off a crunch against us. It's going to bring us dangerously low, but we're able to get to the ominous win to finish it off. Going into this round, I decide to open with Drifblim. My opponent opens with Mawile. Mawile is even better after the move update. I do make the fast swap into Lucario, fire off the power-up punch here to try to put some shield pressure on the Xatu, and we get the shield. I'm going to defend this attack from the Xatu. It is Ominous Wind, and it does not get the boost. I straight up go for the Shadow Ball here. Let's see. We draw the shield. I knew I was either going to get the Xatu or I was going to get that second shield, and we got both the shields. In comes the Ominous Wind from Xatu. Again, no boost. I bring in my Steelix here. I have one shield and two Pokemon. He decides to bring in his Bubble Poliwrath. I'm going to fire off the Earthquake here to do great damage against it, and then switch into Drifblim. Drifblim is going to tank this Ice Punch, fire off a few more hexes, but this Poliwrath has energy, so I am going to shield my Drifblim here. I just hex it down, and then whenever my opponent comes in, I have charge moves at the ready. I do fire off a Shadow Ball here against Mawile. Mawile is such a threat, it is not to be trifled with. I do get taken down by those bites. In comes Steelix though, and we're able to Dragon Tail it down. Xatu comes back in, and I fire off the Crunch to win the match. Going into this round, I decide to open with Empoleon. My opponent does the same. This is an Empoleon mirror match. I get off a few waterfalls here, and then I pull the swap into Alolan Raichu. Alolan Raichu is going to face off against Gardevoir here. Gardevoir is a great pick so far for the Sinister Cup. I would like to do a deep dive on it eventually. It's a strong competitor. I fire off the Thunder Punch here, and we do great damage against that Gardevoir. I wait down that switch timer and come right back in with Empoleon. A couple of waterfalls bring down the Gardevoir. Then my opponent brings in his Empoleon yet again. His Empoleon is going to fire off a charge move. I do decide to shield this one, and then I make a fast swap into Lucario. Lucario is going to face off against this Alola Marowak, and we're going straight up for the Shadow Ball. We one-shot that Alola Marowak and then punch down that Empoleon to win the game. Opening this round with Girafarig, I run into a wall in Steelix. I bail out into Lucario. Lucario is facing off against Drifblim. We're going straight up for that Shadow Ball pressure, and we one-shot the Drifblim with the Shadow Ball. That is the immense power of Lucario, guys. You can take out any Ghost, any Psychic at any time. We fire off a Shadow Ball here against Alola Marowak, and he does decide to shield. We've already taken down a Drifblim, and this Marowak has a third of its health gone. We're going to let Lucario fall here, and then I wait down the switch timer, and then I decide to bring in Girafarig. This Marowak's going to use a Bone Club against it. This is one of the reasons I love Girafarig, because it's so dense and it resists all those attacks. In comes Steelix. I'm going to go here with Alola Marowak and fire off the Bone Club. It is super effective, but that Steelix can take it. We are going to shield the Crunch here, and then go for another Bone Club, but not before a second Crunch comes flying our direction. I use 3 more hexes to get some energy together, and then I fire off the Bone Club here. He does decide to shield his Steelix, but it was his loss because I actually have another Bone Club at the ready. We bring down that Steelix, and out comes his Alola Marowak. I try to make a fast swap, but my timing wasn't perfect there. That's okay, we eat that Shadow Ball, but we have Girafarig with energy. We're going to fire off the Mirror Coat here to win the game. Jumping into this round, we lead with Lucario into Steelix. This is a great position for us. He does decide to bring in a Alola Marowak, and I'd stick it out with Lucario. I'm actually going to shield this attack from Alola Marowak, which is Bone Club. I go here for the power-up punch, expecting the Shadow Ball. He does shield, so we got a free shield out of that Alola Marowak, and we're going to swap here into Girafarig. He's going to fire off an attack here against the Girafarig. It is Bone Club, and Girafarig takes that like a champ. In comes another Bone Club. Still no problem. Girafarig's going to use 2 more Confusions. This Marowak's going to fire off a third Bone Club, and we still survive it. Girafarig brings down the Alola Marowak. My opponent decides to come in here with Steelix. Girafarig does not have a good answer for Steelix, and I think that's one of the big things holding it back. I think that's why Bronzong's are probably a little more favorable because of the Bulldoze. I am going to fire off the Power Punch here against Steelix. It does huge damage. In comes Cresselia, and we make the fast swap into Steelix. Steelix is using those Dragon Tails. Cresselia is going to fire off the Aurora Beam. It's not a big deal to us, though. We have to burn that shield, though, to set up a favorable position for Lucario. I do decide to crunch this Cresselia, and then I try to go for a second one, but it gets a charge move first. That's okay, because we're going to take that Aurora Beam, no problem. In comes our second crunch. Let's see if it's shielded. And it is. Shields are down. Lucario is in the back. I try to get to the crunch here, but Steelix is going to finish us off. I bring in Lucario, a couple of counters, take down Steelix, and we Shadow Ball this Cresselia. Even at full health, this probably would have brought it close to being KO'd. Lucario is such a threat in the Sinister Cup. If you have some matches with Lucario, please share them with me. Share the link or share the GIF or post them on Twitter. My link is in the description below. I love doing this deep dive on Lucario. I think it's a badass Pokemon for the Sinister Cup, and I can't wait to see what you battlers do with him.